So I added a new feature to Project Planner AI, and I wanted to demo that feature to you all today and also walk you through the code in case you want to also add something like this to your own application. So let's go and manage my projects. I'm gonna go to my dashboard, and I have a couple of projects I'm trying to manage. Some of these I need to like delete because I've given up on it. So one thing that's pretty meta is we're using this application to manage our own application's development, right? So let's go into this. And the new feature I added was feedback. So if you go to feedback, this is feedback that I manually added, right? So if I click on add feedback, you can type in the name of the person or like their Twitter handle or whatever email may be, and then you can paste in the feedback that they requested. Another feature that Hosna, who's another YouTuber that I'm working on this project with, added a top navigation feedback. And when you enter feedback into this, it's actually going to have the feedback show up inside of our user feedback section over here. Now that's only hooked into our application. There's like a hard-coded project ID. So anytime you click on this top nav and leave feedback, it actually just goes straight to our feedback section. But I think I do plan to abstract this away, maybe give a public REST API or just give widgets where if you have your own project, you can just add the widget into your own Next.js project or whatever, have a widget where people can enter their feedback and it'll get entered directly into your own feedback section. So that's kind of the approach I want to take pretty soon. But some other things I want to kind of demo with this. Okay, obviously we can edit the feedback, just loads up the same modal. We can delete the feedback if you want. But I added something cool. This is AI suggestion. The way side project AI works is we have all these work items, right? We want to track the things that we need to do in our system. Looks like there's a little CSS bug that we're going to have to work on fixing there. But basically when me and Hosna work on things or get bug reports or get feedback, we just add them as work items and we can go through here and kind of manage them, assign to each other, change the statuses of those, etc. Very similar to GitHub issues or Trello tasks. But what I added is if you go to some of this feedback here, you can just say AI suggestions. And this is going to kick off a process. There's a toast down here at the bottom you can't see, but this kicks off an AI process to parse your feedback that the user uploaded. And then it's going to give you some work item suggestions, right? So in this case, it just gave us one suggestion. So someone wants the ability to basically view analytics directly in this application without having to go to all these other different links. So that's the work item. And so you can basically import this and that will move it directly to your work items. So over here, integration of better analytics on the blog page. And there you have it. That exact same description was added here and you have a work item for it. So pretty cool. I am going to go ahead and just delete that one. So let's just delete it because I think I added it earlier. So yeah, let's talk about this AI one because I think this is actually pretty cool. The AI suggestion. Let's find that feedback card and let me walk you through some of this code. So we have a Shadcn drop-down menu and somewhere here you'll see feedback. Right here, AI suggestions. And so when someone clicks on the AI suggestions, what it does is it takes the feedback ID in our database, in our Convex database, we have just a feedback record. It has an ID. And we send that over to the backend. So if I were to go ahead and look at this method, we can get a little bit of insight as to how this is working. So let's go to the function here. Now I am using Convex for our backend as a service, but this is basically the same logic you're going to have to take if you just implement this yourself with a REST API or server actions. So we have an action that takes in the ID. I do some stuff by first getting the feedback from the database, and then I verify that the user who made the request has access to modify the plan that the feedback is attached to. So we have a couple of authorization helper functions kind of sprinkled out through this backend, and we call them on different resources to say, hey, do you have access to create a work item? Hey, do you have access to modify a plan? Do you have access to query a plan? Stuff like that. But if you don't have access, I throw an error, and then I get the user and make sure that they exist. And then I verify that the user is premium. So another thing that we changed in the application, which I'll probably make a different video to explain, is I set up subscriptions, right? So you have Stripe subscriptions to be able to do this feature. If you're not premium, you can't do it, right? I don't want people to charge me a bunch of money on OpenAI running a feature that they haven't paid for. So I check to make sure that you're premium. If you're not, I throw an error. And then I also keep track of how many times you've done this. Again, anytime you're integrating with a third-party service that's going to charge you by use, you probably want to add some type of limiting. So every month I give users a limit of, I think this is like 30 a month. So if you kind of do this too many times, like if someone were to try to abuse our system and just keep on hitting the endpoint, I don't want them to just run up our OpenAI bill. So I basically make sure that the limit is under that max limit. And then I increment the limit so I can keep track of how many times they've done this. And then finally, after all that setup, all those checks, we kick off a suggest work item AI method. So I have an AI file here, and if I go to suggest work item, again, we're just passing in the text that comes from that feedback entry. And I say, hey, take the context of this message and convert it to a work item format someone could use to build out a feature to an application. I pass in the text, and then I say, give me an array. This is the structure it's going to take. And then I use Zod to validate this, because sometimes OpenAI just gives you bad results. And so I use Zod to make sure it is exactly in an array format with objects in it. The objects must be strings with titles. In fact, now that I look at this, one thing that we should definitely do is say, like, this needs to have some length to it, because I've seen AI give back bogus results sometimes. It'll actually just give us back an array that looks just like this. So just kind of make sure that, hey, whatever AI gives us, make sure it's good. And then that gets returned back as an array of suggestions. So then going back to the UI, once we get the work items, where do we call this method? We call it down here. So we get the work item suggestions that come back. Honestly, I should probably call this suggestions, like that. And I basically set some state for those new suggestions that come in, and I show a modal. So that's why you saw that modal pop up. I have this other set show modal state boolean, which basically toggles this suggest work items modal. So if you look at the modal, pretty straightforward. Basically, I just loop over all those work items. And if someone were to click on that import button, remember that blue import button I demoed? You click on it. I then make another mutation that calls our backend, has some default values kind of set up for your account, and that gets added to your work items list, okay? And then finally, I delete that. I filter that out of your work items. I make sure if you click on the import, I just want to go ahead and do some client-side updating so you can't keep on importing the same thing. And I show a toast, and that's basically how it works. So I personally think this will be really useful when I get more feedback integration set up in this application, because one thing that's a little bit tedious is, like, people will give you feedback, and then you have to go and, like, parse through it, and you have to go and figure out what exactly you want to add in. I think just letting AI help you along the way, just give you suggestions, and you can pick and choose which one you want to import directly as, like, tasks or work items, I think is very useful. So if you guys enjoyed watching this video and this overview, give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment if there's any other features you think I should add to this project, or just go to the top header and just leave us some feedback. I think that'd be very useful as well. You want to try subscribing to the service, play around with it. We're just trying to improve it along the way and get some real users to kind of give us some feedback. So that's about it. The link will be in the description. Have a good day. Happy coding.